I thought I would give you a view of what I'm doing today. It's Sunday and it's a perfect day for transplanting some of these guys. Most of these seeds I started on March 28th, which was 17 days ago. So this is how big they get under grow lights indoors where they're protected for almost 2 weeks. And some of these, the rule of thumb I have for transplanting them into a larger pot like this is when they reach and they get real leggy, when they reach about 4 inches, they need their own space. And I also, like, these are butternut squash, and so I'm not going to transplant all these. I don't want to have that much butternut squash in the garden. I've gotten a lot smarter over the years. But like this one right here is super strong. There's a really, that's the strongest one. I'm going to take that, and I'll just keep going through a process of elimination, taking maybe 4 or 5 of the strongest plants and putting those in a little pot. So I have my potting soil down here, and I'm working inside because it's windy outside and you can't do this in the wind. So I have a little fertilizer right here, and I put a tiny bit of fertilizer in the pot and blend it in with the soil because it's real strong. And then I cover these, I push them down as far as I can, and then I cover the roots. And I label them, and I take them over here. So they have a little more potting soil, a little more nutrients, and they'll get bigger. And then the next step will be out in the garden. Okay, I redid the last plant. It wasn't a very good example of transplanting. When you have real leggy plants like this that are tall and kind of beginning to fall over, it's perfectly okay to plant them deeper in the pot so that very little of the stem is sticking up. It actually makes them stronger. So I repotted this one and pushed more of the stem down so very little of the top is sticking out. That's actually important. That's why I redid this. I thought I'd show you the whole process. So I'm just taking the sunflowers. These are red sunflowers, and see all the roots on there? It's quite a nice little selection of roots. And I'm literally putting the whole thing in this pot. And unlike vegetables or food where I don't want tons, like the butternut squash I mentioned, I don't want to have 10 plants because each plant produces many butternut squash. But I do have a different approach with flowers. These are sunflowers, so basically I don't care if I have tons of plants in the pot. So I'm going to fill it with dirt. I'm giving it a little bit of fertilizer, not a lot because it's pretty strong. And then I'm going to fill it with dirt. See, I have, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 individual sunflower plants. And I'm putting them all in one little pot. And then when I move them out to the garden, I'll plant them in a cluster. In a bigger pot, I'll just have several clusters. And I want lots and lots of flowers. So hopefully they'll grow. So here's the strong butternut squash. And as you can see, versus the sunflowers where I had maybe 8 or 9 or 10 individual seeds in one pot, with the larger fruit and vegetables, I only have 2. And the reason I put 2 is there are many cases where one will die, so you still have one in there. And I do a label, and I always put what it is first, and then the species, the type of squash. So it's a butternut wolfram. So this is kind of interesting too. So in this typical seed packet for winter squash, I counted the seeds plus the ones that I planted, and there are about 45 seeds in this particular packet. And if you times that by starts that you buy at a nursery that are already, started for you, they used to be like $5, but they've probably gone up to 6. Let's just say 6. That's $270 just to buy the starts. If you're going to buy that many, obviously you probably wouldn't. But and I also asked Perplexity AI, how many butternut squash plants you get per plant, and you can get anywhere from 3 to 4 all the way up to 15. So you kind of have to think about that when you're planting all this stuff. I don't want that much squash, but basically we're going to have probably 3, by the time these are in the ground, we'll probably have 3 healthy plants. So, you know, even if I get 15 butternut squash, I'm thoroughly happy. So you kind of have to look at what you're producing as well. Okay, so I thought I'd show you how I decide which plants to keep and which ones to get rid of. And if you look at this one, it's nice and big and strong compared to, let's say, this little guy with a curly leaf. It just doesn't look as vigorous. And if you put them next to each other, you can really see the difference. So clearly, keep this guy, get rid of that guy. So keep going. Let's see, this one's okay. But I want to pick, again, this is one of the stronger ones. It's just green and healthy, and it's got, you know, a lot of roots. And it just seems like this one's going to do a lot better. So I'm picking those 2. Okay, so even though I'm getting rid of these, in the long run, it's a lot better to have healthier plants than the weaker ones. And I wanted to point out something else, that the stems were quite a bit longer, and I almost covered the stems entirely in the pot. And what will happen is those stems will start to grow little roots, and the root base will be even stronger. So it's okay to put them almost up to the leaf line. Here are the transplanted plants. We have the Minnesota midget cantaloupe. We have the Waltham butternut squash. We have the Pro-Cut red sunflowers, and then we have the slicing cucumber. So the next step for these guys is the garden, and I won't plant them out there until the ground is warm enough for each thing, for each plant. And they all have different temperature requirements. So I just mentioned the soil temperature. So for example, on the butternut squash, it says to direct sow, which I didn't do, which is fine. I didn't want to take any chances. Until you don't plant outdoors until the temperature reaches at least 60 degrees. So all the plants have their own requirements as to when they can go on the ground. Show you I'm working on the slicing cucumbers, and I pulled them out of their little cubicle. As you can see, a little cubicle. And this is what came out. So you have the plant. That tells me that they are definitely overdue for transplanting. Their root system is incredible on these guys. What's interesting is on March 28th, when I did a video on using these paper dividers, and which I thought was a great idea because you don't have a lot of plastic left over in the pots or trays. And sometimes it's hard to get the little start out of the plastic tray. You have to really poke it and push it, which affects the roots. But anyway, so I thought I would pull these up with the starts, but the starts came right out. So I am going to reuse this tray for the next set of seeds I am planting, which I will show you. And these are all the warmer weather things, which I would start later because you harvest them later in the year. So tomatoes, the lettuces, you can grow anytime. I'm just starting them now. The eggplant, both types of eggplant. We have a millionaire and a Asian trio, and the beets, fennel, and some Swiss chard. So it's nice, I can reuse the trays. This is interesting. I've never seen seeds like this. This is from a Specialty Eggplants Asian Trio packet. And the seeds are all different colors, which is kind of cool. And the rule of thumb with seeds is the bigger the seed, the deeper you plant it. So these are kind of medium size. And I think the directions say they get planted about 1/4 inch down. And some seeds just literally sit on the surface without even being covered by dirt. So the bigger the seed, the deeper it goes. And here's what I did today. So this is my garden, our garden. You have the onions on the top. And I planted some fennel, 2 little pots of fennel, 2 little pots of Swiss chard, pepper tool, and then I have 1 pot of zinnia green purple. And I've already showed you all these seeds. Here's all my larger transplanted seeds right up against some tomato seeds that I've started from scratch. And the rest you've seen. Here's my transplants that I showed you, the butternut squash, sunflowers, cucumber, and that is my Sunday. And I must say I've gotten much better about not planting too many plants. So flower and vegetable garden, all done.